Hello, Nursing 404 students. It's hard to believe we are entering into our third week of this course. It is amazing just how fast time flies. So I wanted to go over with you a few things with Module 3. We are going to specifically look at the topic of poverty. So a lot of the same concepts with the exercise that you did for Module 2 will be applied into Module 3 when we look at an activity that you'll be doing for Module 3. So when you enter into Module 3, the objectives for this week will be to assess poverty as a culture, to analyze the hidden rules among classes and identify how your classes differ from the other two classes, identify the impact of the lack of financial, emotional, and other resources of those in poverty, and discuss the benefits of the EMTALA law and how the lack of financial, emotional, mental, physical, and support resources impact emergency room use by the poor. So we call that the EMTALA law, for those of you who might not be familiar with it. Those of you who do work in emergency room or maybe like an urgent care setting, you probably are familiar with EMTALA laws. So the activities for Module 3, you're going to read Chapter 11 out of your text. You'll review these YouTube videos that I have embedded into this module. Complete the Could You Survive exercise. You'll need to complete this exercise, or there's actually another exercise. You'll need to complete the Could You Survive exercise in order to complete the discussion board for this week. And then there's an additional exercise that you'll need to complete. So you have basically two assignments that you'll be turning in. One is the assignment itself, and then the other is the discussion board. So remember, with discussion board posts, that initial post needs to be posted by Thursday, 11:59 p.m. Central Time. That allows for your classmates to read your post, to think about it, maybe think or create a response. So that's why it's really important for that initial post to be turned in on time. Your discussion board or response posts you need 2 of those to your peers, turned in by Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Time. I just wanted to remind everyone of those discussion board deadlines. While we're talking about the discussion board, you may have noticed I didn't respond to each and everyone's post this week. So from here on out, from weeks 2 through 8, what I'm going to be doing is responding to half of you one week. And if I didn't respond to you on that 1 week, then I will be responding to your post the following week. So just keep that in mind, that, it's not that I'm not reading your post, it's just that my responses that I post are going to be to half the class 1 week, and then we're just going to alternate with the other half that I'll be responding to the following week. Now, that's not to say that I won't be responding to maybe your post 2 weeks in a row. That certainly can happen, but just on the time constraint of getting the work done, getting your assignments graded, this is basically how I need to use my time. So again, you'll watch the videos, and then this is the exercise, Could You Survive? So you'll click on that. It brings you right to this document here. It is relatively lengthy. It's 6 pages long, but it starts out with, Could you survive poverty? And you're just to put a check mark by each item that you know how to do. Okay, pretty easy. Same thing. Could you survive middle class? You put a check by each item that you know how to do. And then, could you survive in wealth? Again, put a check by each item that you know how to do. All right. And then there's some other additional questions that I would like for you to answer. So you can easily download this and print this if it's easier for you to have a hard copy. And then when you have this completed, when you go to the discussion board for this module, go right on into that. It says the main points of the Could You Survive exercise is that you most likely will fall into the middle class, and assume that everyone knows these things. If you do not know the hidden rules of most of the other classes, realize that these are taken for granted by each economic class. This means that each particular economic class develops rules, norms, biases, and values that will be different. So what I want you to do then is to answer these 3 questions. Reflect on this and respond to each of the following questions. What economic class did you fall into? What was the most interesting aspect you found about this quiz? And describe a time when you did not understand the behavior of a patient who came from a different socioeconomic class and how you responded to it. Now, again, it's always so important to be very honest with this in any exercise that we do in this class, because the more you can be honest with your classmates and with yourself, the more self-awareness that you're building. And remember that self-awareness is that first stepping stone to developing strong cultural competence. So let's go back into the module then. So again, you'll need to complete that exercise before you complete the discussion board. So going back into module 3, this is just a fun activity. It takes less than 5 minutes to do. It's called Play Spent, and it's like I said, it's a fun activity. It kind of puts things into perspective. It takes less than 5 minutes. I just went ahead and added this in here because the first time that I took this, I admit I think I'd taken it like 3 or 4 times just to see, how things work out differently. And I found it very intriguing. So I included this. This is not mandatory, but I think you will find this kind of not entertaining, but enlightening activity to do in this class. And then finally, the assignment that you're going to be turning in is the case study that's found on page 244 of your text. I want you to read the case study that features Mrs. Tucker. You will provide a 250-word response to the 6 reflection questions on page 244. Now, you will notice that some of these questions are very similar, if not the same, of the questions that you've answered when we talked about where you are on the staircase model, because you will actually be using the staircase model to answer some of these questions. It also says to not exceed 1 typed page. This is so that way you kind of keep things nice and clear, concise, stick to the points, stick to the questions, don't go on and on and on. But if you go beyond a page, I'm not, if you go like a page and a half, I'm not going to like take points off or anything like that. But do try to make it very clear, very concise. But the 6 questions that you'll be answering is: how comfortable are you caring for this patient? Where do you see yourself on the cultural competency staircase? And again, this is another, has this changed? It very well could have changed from 2 weeks ago with the last 2 weeks of modules that you've learned. How would you progress to the next level? Again, we're kind of going back to that chapter 1 and creating strategies on moving forward. Now, keep in mind, I want you to answer these questions thinking about that case study. So as the exercise sort of fell last, 2 weeks ago, it was very general. You didn't really have a case study to go on. Really think about this case study as you're answering these questions. Okay, so there are, again, questions 1 through 6 on page 244 of your text, and it clearly aligns with the case study specific to Mrs. Tucker on page 244. Again, this assignment is due on Sunday, and by 11:59 p.m. Central Time. So please make sure that you get that in on time. Again, if you need extra time, I don't mind granting that. You just need to email me at least 8 hours ahead of time, asking for an extension. I'll be happy to give you that extension, but I do need to have that before that 8-hour deadline. Let's see. So I wanted to talk to you just briefly about the final paper. So if you go into the syllabus, rubrics, and assignment schedule, remember back in the orientation video, I told you that the signature assignment for this course, or the big assignment for this course, is writing the final paper. So if you go into the rubrics and you go to the Von Roll paper rubric, you will see the instructions on how to begin this project. All right. The purpose of this assignment is to provide an opportunity to study a selected vulnerable population. Content of the paper should include a description of the vulnerable population and topic. You should also include statistical information, background information about the population, and the incidence and prevalence of the health issues or the common problems for this population. So it is going to require you to do a little bit of research. I would recommend looking at things like the CDC, the NIH, or the National Institutes of Health, Healthy People 2020. Those are really great resources. You can also look at the county health rankings. So that's out of the University of Wisconsin County Health Rankings. So you can just Google that. It'll pop up for you, which is a fun website. If you hadn't had Nursing 451 yet, you will be using the county health rankings in that course. So some of you, this is your first course, so I don't expect you to know what the county health rankings are. But for those of you who this is maybe your last or second to the last course, you should be familiar with that. So then the current definition of the vulnerable population is those who lack integration into healthcare system due to characteristics of ethnicity, culture, economics, geography, or health. So members of the vulnerable populations are at risk for not only obtaining necessary medical care and have constant potential threats to their health. The commonly cited examples of a vulnerable population include racial or ethnic minorities, the rural or urban poor, the undocumented immigrants, people with disabilities or multiple chronic conditions, and members of the LGBT community. For the purposes of this paper, you may choose among those who have unique spiritual beliefs, and that may interfere with health and members of any marginalized group. So it's up to you to choose which population, which vulnerable population you would like to write about. I also want to emphasize, and I don't think it's listed here, but think about like the elderly is certainly a vulnerable population, and as our elderly are living longer in this country, they're even more vulnerable to predators. You know, people out there who are creating these scams, scamming these elderly people out of thousands of dollars, you know, their life savings sometimes. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you work with the aging population, you can certainly use that as well. So really the sky is the limit. If you have a question about it, let me know. Just shoot me an email and say, hey, I'd really like to do this population. Do you consider this a vulnerable population? Okay. And then make sure that you use at least 5 professional references. So these are peer-reviewed journal articles, not websites. You can use websites and you can use your book, but you must have at least 5 professional references. And again, those 5 professional references must come from a peer-reviewed scholarly journal article, okay? I just wanted to emphasize that because every year, you know, I get students who will do 5 references and they might have 3 websites, their textbook, and a journal article. Well, they only have 1 of the professional references. And so, you know, of course, they don't get all the points. So this paper should be between 5 and 6 pages, and that does not include the title page or the reference page. Okay, I just want you to know that it does not include the title page and reference page. You're going to have 5 to 6 really meaty pages that you're going to be turning in. That's why I want you to start this project now instead of waiting to the end of the class. So you can just kind of go through here and look at what I'm going to be looking for in terms of grading, but I wanted to bring this to your attention now so you can start thinking about a vulnerable population. Again, if you have questions about it, you can just email me. And I think that pretty much covers it for this week, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the discussion board. Thank you.